I'm sitting here at Rick Jones Pianos with a piano I'm very excited to have worked on. I'm glad Mr. Jones let me do so, and I've done everything to recondition this piano to, in my opinion, a like-new condition. This is a Diapason model 170 Grand, 5 foot 8 inches long, about the same size as a Yamaha C2 G2 or a Steinway M. The 170 in the model number is the length of the piano in centimeters, so it's around there. It was made in Hamamatsu, Japan in around the mid-80s, we'll say around 1985, by Kawai in their factories. But it has a different design. There's a story. Diapason was a separate company originally in Hamamatsu, Japan, founded I think in around 1947, 48, 49, founded by a Mr. Ohashi, who, his vision for a piano, from what I've been able to research online, sometimes having to translate through Google Translate from Japanese, is that he envisioned a piano that had more of a European sound. And in my opinion, the furniture style looks very similar to some Bechsteins that I've seen. It's a very attractive piece of furniture, I'll say that. It has, in my opinion, a Bechstein-shaped music desk, the way it's shaped here. Plus, really gorgeous brass ferrules at the bottom, very chunky size too, similar to what you would see on a Mason and Hamlin or Bechstein or Baldwin or Bosendorfer. That will be shown in the pictures that Paul took of this piano. It's just a nice, different appearance that we don't see nearly as often, because Steinways, Yamahas, and Kawais, the Grands, all tend to have a spade leg, which is, well, normal, and it doesn't have brass, and it's elegant in its own way, but this provides a nice splash of shininess to it. And I polished the brass, so I make sure it's very shiny on this piano. Getting back to the Diapason story, they weren't able to make it on their own as an independent piano company, and incidentally, in 1969, if I remember correctly, it was Kawai that bought them out, and they continued, perhaps still to this day. I know I don't know if they really ever stopped making them, but it was always kind of a low production piano in Kawai's factory. They continued to make the Diapason piano with the original Diapason designs, and a large part of that, what makes it unique, in my opinion, is the scale design. So that's the shape of the case, cast iron plate, bridges, soundboard, and how that all determines the position of the strings and where along the length of the string each hammer for each key strikes. All of those tiny little proportions, just the most minute difference of 1 millimeter can make a difference in the sound of one note. And it's all those little decisions, all those little millimeters that every manufacturer has to consider for each of the 88 notes of a piano to determine, given the size of the piano that they're working with, how it's going to sound. And Diapason pianos were known for more of that warmer, perhaps more European scaling, and I think it was Larry Fine in his piano book said as much, that the Diapason scale design is said to be a little warmer than that of the Kawai. So, same quality as Kawai, which in my opinion is very good and on par with Yamaha. Kawai may not be as well known as Yamaha, and certainly Diapason's not as well known as Kawai, but so far as I can tell, made in the same factories. The way it's put together is very similar to a Kawai. It's just as easy to service. That is to say, it's friendly to service. It's easy for us technicians to get to the insides of the piano and make any adjustments necessary, just like it would be on a Kawai. And so the same strict quality control is what this piano was made with, but it has a different design and a different sound. So for those who maybe think especially Yamaha and sometimes even Kawai is a bit too bright sounding, I think you'll be very pleased with how this piano turned out. When I was playing it just now, both the sound and the feel, I'll admit it, I felt like I was playing a Petrov piano actually, because we recently had a Petrov in our store not too long ago, and the satisfying sort of massive feel of the keyboard reminded me a lot of Petrov grands that I've played, plus the darker, warmer sound. So, a lot going for this piano. I guess I should preface anything else I say here by disclosing that I do have a Diapason piano as a personal piano. I have an upright at home. I was pleased to see that it was a quality Japanese-made piano when I first saw it. That had a different sort of sound, and it just appealed to me. And I decided to buy one from Rick 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago to this day. So I think very highly of these pianos, and I'm always excited whenever we get them in. Something a little different, but also familiar. And I saw when this piano came in originally, the previous owner took good care of it, especially the inside of the piano. It was very clean. They must have had it closed most of the time. When I worked in it, I had to do very little cleaning on the inside. No rust anywhere on the strings or tuning pins. It must have been a very stable humidity environment. I did have to buff the case though and polish it, so I've made it look as close as I can to a new piano. There are blemishes if you look mostly on the sides of the music desk there. They enjoyed their piano, but they took good care of it, but they put all their music there. Also polished the bench, which is the original bench that came with it. It's identical to a Kawai bench, but you'll note that Kawai benches do have brass ferrules at the bottom of the legs. Decided to get this one nice and polished so it would match the piano. Because it's kind of otherwise hard for us to find a piano with its original bench on a piano that has brass ferrules. Oftentimes benches get lost, so this will be the bench that comes with it. I should have said it's a polished ebony finish, so very similar to what you would find in many Kawai and Yamaha grands. And it fits very well in a room full of more contemporary furniture. It has a classic design, but that high gloss finish is very appealing in a contemporary setting. I like it anyway. So, and musically, very rewarding to play. The first piece I played is Mozart, his Piano Sonata in A minor. It gave me a bit of a workout because it is more of a firmer, substantial feel. I would recommend this piano particularly for music, especially classical music written, say, after 1800. So Beethoven onward, that's the Romantic era. And there are many students who come in, teachers, professionals, that played that time period of music. I'm talking about Beethoven, onward to Robert Schumann, Chopin, Liszt, Brahms, Rachmaninoff. I remember the last time we had a Diapason grand in our inventory. We don't get them very often. I think it was over 2 years ago now. I didn't even make it to the website because a very accomplished pianist came in who played, as I recall, Liszt and Rachmaninoff. He came in, was more on a budget, didn't have a whole lot of room, but immediately saw the last Diapason we had and had to go for it because it had that really substantial feel and a very rich, colorful sound that flattered that exact type of music. I'll rate the tone of this piano a 4 on a scale from 1 to 10. It's distinctly on the mellow side, and it's especially dark and beautiful sounding when you play softly in the bass. I didn't play so much the bass, but it's a very deep sounding piano. You would not expect, just listening to this piano, that it's only 5 foot 8 inches long. It has a very booming sound when you play it loudly. Overall, I think the piano has more of an introverted, mellow sound, so it will fit well into a relatively modest living space. but it has this wonderful reserve of power, especially in the bass, that can really be brought out to make a piece sound really big when you need to. So I'm very pleased with the dynamic range on this piano, I'll say. I was able to get very whisper quiet. None of the notes were lost. Part of that's the regulation. I'm always particular about making sure the notes activate when you play very softly. And that's something, in my opinion, which Yamaha and Kawai pianos lend themselves very well to. And this has a Kawai action, so it plays very similarly. So yeah, about the action, it feels substantial and firm, similar to a Petrov. It's also similar to many Kawai grains that I've played. The keys have a way of returning to their original position, in my opinion, very quickly on Kawai grands, just by the way they make their actions, the way the springs are configured inside of the whip-in. That's the little complex wooden mechanism that each key has underneath the hammer to allow the notes to repeat very quickly. The way Kawai configures on their pianos, it tends to favor more of a firm touch because of the way the springs are as tight as they are, and there's other aspects of it too. But it also forces the key back up to a ready position very quickly. And when that happens, the key is in contact with your finger more, and that's important information. I mean, this all happens in a fraction of a second when you're playing the piano, but that's all very important information for a pianist, especially one who's practicing a long time and is well accomplished. That's all important information that contributes to the feeling of the keyboard being responsive, and that's what this piano has. It's really very satisfying to play in that regard. Firmer than I'm used to, but I rather enjoyed it. I'll say it works maybe a little better on the second piece I played, which was by Isaac Albéniz, a Spanish romantic pianist. He wrote that in about 1898, I think. Cordoba is the name of the piece, Cordoba. So really suited for that time period of music. And 4 and 6 is what it will be for the tone and touch on this piano. The middle pedal does operate as sostenuto. The older pianos made in Japan didn't always have them, but this is a later model, and of a certain size they include a sostenuto. So it operates just like it would on a Steinway grain. You can select notes, depress the middle pedal, and only the dampers for the notes that you pre-selected are activated. It's like having a third hand holding down notes on the keyboard for you. So really, in my opinion, this piano was made for the really accomplished, at least intermediate pianist in mind, to be as musically rewarding and capable as possible in a relatively small size. If it gets any smaller than 5'8" in our count, we call that a baby grand piano. This is like the smallest of the medium grand pianos. But it really has, in my opinion, really has a 6-foot sound. It has a very big sound if you need it, and it's very satisfying to play. If I didn't already have a grand at home, I wouldn't mind having this to practice on every day. I've rather enjoyed working on it and playing it just now. So, and of course, like everything else we sell, it has a 10-year warranty, all parts and labor, and 100% lifetime trade-up guarantee. Just please make sure that you have it in tune twice a year by a professional technician, and that you keep it away from extremes of humidity, as the previous owner did on this piano. Soundboard's in beautiful condition, and as I mentioned, there's no tarnish on the strings when it came in. So whoever had this was very cognizant of not exposing this piano to extremes of humidity, particularly high humidity, which will cause the soundboard to expand upward, cause the fibers to crush, and then will open a crack later on in drier weather. You don't want that to happen to a piano, and so moderate stable humidity is what will maintain the piano in the long term and make sure it continues to sound good. So we ask that you do that. If you want, you can return at any point in the future and trade this piano in precisely for its instrument sales price. That's what we mean by 100% lifetime trade up. Just keep in mind, we don't get a whole lot in our inventory that's quite like this, unless you have to have a bigger piano, and we have like a 6'3" Petrov in our inventory one day. But rest assured, pianos made by Kauai are workhorses. They're easy to service. They withstand heavy playing very well, so long as they're being carefully maintained by your piano technician. So I expect you'll be able to get a long musical life out of this piano ahead of it. I think you'll want to. I certainly would like to if I didn't already have a grand at home. This piano would be able to take me a long way in practicing. So it's the trade-in is merely an option you can take. You don't have to feel a need to take it in any point in the future. And I think you'll probably want to hold on to this piano anyway. So please stop by, play this for yourself. You can play this along with anything else in our inventory. But if you can't make it, you can always give us a phone call or send us an email if you have any questions. Thanks.